Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I want to follow up on a video that I did a few days ago. Our politicians transformed New York City into a meme. I have been showing you a little bit of this indoor-outdoor dining thing for a while now, where there's this interesting phenomena where you'll see bubbles on the street, you'll see these houses that get created on the side of the road that are for seemingly dining. And it looks like it is another restaurant, but it's not. It's outdoor dining. And it has gotten to the point of being completely and utter ridiculous. So one of the examples I have in this video is you can see here, that is a ceiling. There is, it looks like actually an aluminum roof over here, aluminium to make Dave Jones happy. This is a plexiglass window that is sealed. This is a door, as in you go in through the door to be indoors, and that is a wall. So you have a wall, you have a ceiling, you have a floor. This is inside. However, since the inside is outside, it is okay. And I was going over how ridiculous I found this to be. I spotted that from across the street while I was riding my bike because that door is the door that I bought from Home Depot. It's the same effing door I bought when I was out of money constructing my first store. I had nothing left. I realized those all glass swinging fancy doors can actually go up to over $1,000, and I was down to like $50 left. So I went over to Home Depot and got a $38 door. That is what that cheap piece of shit is. And I wrote on it similar to what they did there. This is not outside, this is inside. And one of the things that Eli said in his video when he responded to this one is he said, and you should check out his channel, I'll link his video down below, is that this is why people don't trust the science. So you have politicians or you have people in an area that will all say you need to trust the science. Why do people deny science? And this is the reason people will deny the science. And I think it is worth making a distinction here as to what this is. I believe science, I trust science, I like scientists. They're responsible for many innovations and many great things that make my life better today. And I think it's important to defend science by making it very clear and drawing that line and saying that this is not science. This is not even remotely science. It's not that science is wrong. It's not that science shouldn't be trusted because this is science. It's that this is politics. There's a difference between science and politics. I did a video a while back on the intersection of science and politics and why it's not so easy to create science-based policy as people would like. Everybody says they want science and data-driven policy, and then you actually have to sell it to people, and that's where it becomes very difficult. I wound up getting rid of that video. I was responding to someone else's video when I did that video, and what I noticed is that no one actually listened to what I had to say. They listened to what the person I was responding to said, assumed that was what I thought, and then just raged. I think there's probably a good 2 or 3 people that listened to that video that actually listened to what I had to say. I just said, fuck it. No. The idea is that there's science, there's politics. These are 2 very distinct and separate things. So let's try to explain what's going on here. So we have a lot of new COVID cases in New York City. If you take a look over here, in addition to all the cases that we had initially and all the deaths, you'll see that we're up to like 17,000 a day now. And when they got rid of the indoor dining, we were at the point of getting about 9,500 to 10,000 cases a day. We were allowing 25% of the normal capacity for indoor dining. And then we moved over to no indoor dining. Now, science says that indoor dining is more likely to spread COVID than outdoor dining. This makes complete sense. When people get together at a restaurant, they're going to laugh, they're going to share stories, laughing, sharing stories, eating in close proximity, droplets going everywhere, lots of breath going everywhere. Also, this is New York City. The restaurants are very densely packed, often in buildings that are over 110 years old because of the amount of money that is going, or how little is left over after paying for rent and the high cost of living and employees in the city. There's not going to be much left over for a nice ventilation system. You may have 40 people in a room that's this size with one tiny little crap blower in the ceiling that is recirculating air very slowly. And this is not as good as being outside, because if you're outside, well, now you have the wind blowing, you have no ceiling, no roof, no surrounding. So if I cough over here, there's a good chance of my COVID going up into outer space before it makes its way to the person sitting 4 or 5 feet to my left than if we were in the exact same room. That's science. That makes sense. What you see here is politics. Let's explain. So this is one of the things that that drives me nuts is when people will say, Lewis, I can't believe you dislike de Blasio or Cuomo. They just want to save lives. Do you hate saving lives? And I think that is a ridiculous statement. If you care about saving lives and you are trying to put together a solution, you put together a multivariate solution to a multivariate problem. You do not pretend that a multivariate problem is actually a univariate problem to which you can apply a univariate solution to multiple problems, and then outsource the enforcement of your dictatorial rules and regulations to people who are actually in the community who don't have the heart to enforce them. Here's the thing with rules. And this is important to explain. If you have a rule that is just, you can typically explain, well, here's what you did, here's why it's wrong, here's how you could actually be better off if you obeyed the rule. So let's say we're talking about a fight. Let's say I'm a cop and there's two people fighting in the street and they look like they're about to kill each other and I break it up. I can feel pretty confident in enforcing that rule because I know as an adult that there's probably a better way that they could be dealing with their dispute than beating the crap out of each other. Even if they feel really good in the moment, a lot of the times after you do that, you kind of wonder, there's probably a better way I could have gone about this. Is probably a better way to deal with it. You could, each you have a cooler head, think about it for a couple of minutes, calm down, talk to a friend, and then come back to the table and see what's going on. That's probably going to be a better way to deal with it. If someone has an iPhone 10 and they really want an iPhone 11, so and there's no real reason, they just kind of want a slightly newer phone, so they try to steal the phone from the person next to them. You know that's a wrong thing to do. That person will be more than fine to continue going along in life with their iPhone 10, stopping them from stealing the iPhone 11. Totally just rule to deal with. When you're talking about this, you're talking about a rule that after you enforce is actually going to hurt that person in a way that they don't deserve to necessarily be hurt, while simultaneously offering no solution. So you're going to go up to a group of people that are poor or business owners that are, week to week, paycheck to paycheck, and tell them they could do business. So you're not allowed to make any money. However, I'm not going to provide you with a solution. I'm not going to try to mediate between you two or suggest how you two could solve your dispute rather than fighting. I'm not going to do, none of that. I'm not going to have a rule where if you follow it, you're better off than if you didn't follow it. I have a rule that if you follow, you will be fucked. And once you're fucked, I'm not going to help you one bit. I'm not going to explain to you what you do if the charity clothing drive you go to doesn't have any coats in stock that fit you and it is 17 degrees outside and the homeless shelters are full and have people fighting in them. I am not going to tell you what to do if a vehicle of yours breaks down or the heater breaks in your home and you need to pay someone to fix that heater and you don't have money because I've now shut down your business. You can go free. I'm not going to explain to you how to deal with the consequences of following this rule. So you've created a rule that actually, if you follow it, it screws you over in many ways. And then you take that rule and you don't enforce it yourself. De Blasio and Cuomo are not going to be the ones that are walking into a restaurant with people and saying, here, listen, you can't do business, but you still owe all the bills the same way you did before, and I'm not going to explain to you how you pay them. What he's then going to do is have a city worker do that job. A city worker that's probably a member of the community, someone that probably walks around this neighborhood, gets along with people in that neighborhood, knows people in that neighborhood, is answerable to people in that neighborhood. It may be the neighbor of the person who is probably going to get kicked out of their apartment in 3 or 4 months' time as a result of not being able to pay their rent because he shut their place down. And you tell them, you enforce this rule. And this is where we get to a point where things get tricky. So you'll have a restaurant that does outdoor dining. And in the summer, the outdoor dining actually made sense because the outdoor dining was actually outdoors. It's 90 degrees outside. There's plenty of space. It's fine. Then you get to the point where maybe it's wintertime, a bus comes by, it rained, there's a puddle, the puddle, splashes some crap into the person's food, and they're like, I don't want to pay $35 for a dish that's covered in shit. So they put up a little wall like this. And then there's a bunch of wind or a truck that has a bunch of exhaust or something, and it all sprinkles onto the food, so you make the wall a little bit higher. Now you got a wall here. And the inspector, again, he doesn't want to shut the thing down because he knows these people are just trying to make a living. He doesn't want to be the one that that condemns these 10 people to financial ruin and death. So the wall is 10 feet. Now they raise it a little bit more because it's really cold. And, well, okay, this is kind of getting indoors, but if he didn't say anything here, how's he going to say anything here? See, that's called sticking the tip in. That's politics. That's not science. Honestly, that's just social human behavior. That's not science. Then they put another wall, because it is 19 degrees outside, and people do not want to eat outside when it's 19 degrees with great wind chill if there's going to be wind. So they put up another wall, and then you might as well have some heat. Their hands are freezing, so they put up a ceiling and a heater. Then now you're at the point where the restaurant would actually be more healthy if it was indoors than outdoors, because indoors you could have the door open, you could open the windows, and you can get some MERV, whatever filter or something inside the place, so that at least the air that's being recirculated is, at least, I don't know, from a placebo sense, less COVID, than if you have a completely enclosed structure with zero ventilation. That is, that's kind of ridiculous. But again, you then have to be the person that walks up there and says, you're disobeying the rule. I'm going to enforce this rule. But by enforcing this rule, I'm not giving you a solution. I'm not saying, here, if you do this, you're doing it this way, but if you do it this way, it's actually better for everybody. You're saying, no, you're doing this. If you do this, it'll be worse for you, your family, your friends, and everybody who works for you. Nah, not my problem. And what you're finding is that a lot of people don't want to do that. Even the people that agree, that having a restaurant with people in close quarters during COVID may not be the best thing for a pandemic, even those who agree that it should be closed don't have the heart to go up there and say, we need you to financially fuck yourself. We're not going to help you, but we need you to financially fuck yourself. And there's going to be a particularly unique kind of person who's going to take that type of job and enforce this. There are rules that I have at my business. For instance, one of them is always have the fume extractor on when you are doing soldering work. I feel that this is a fair ask. It takes a very short amount of time. One of the things we did to make it easier, rather than go onto the desk and click the thing on and off every time you use it, we got one of these button AC switches that you just hit a button on the desk. It turns it on. It's pretty easy. If someone doesn't do it, I explain to them why it's important. This is a $700 air filter we got just so that you don't go home with a bunch of flux fumes and other crap in your lungs. I want you to actually use it so that you remain healthy. It's a pretty easy thing to do. It's no skin off their back. It's 3 seconds off their back to remember to turn it on, so I don't feel guilty about that. And I'm enforcing a rule that is somewhat fair. But this is what you have here is pure politics. It's a rule that people are not going to enforce, because what they need to do to enforce that rule is tell their neighbors, even though you're doing everything right, you're not stealing from people, you're not fucking people over, you're not being violent, you're being a responsible, hardworking citizen, I need you to fuck yourself for the next 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, for all you know. I need whatever debt you have to open this place. I need you to completely destroy your entire business and your way of life. And yeah, that I can't tell you what I'm going to do to actually help you. Oh yeah, that's not my job. That's someone else's department. I am part of the Cuomo department. I'm part of the Blasio. I'm part of the if we save one life department. What do you do how do I deal with this crippling debt for the next 25 years? Go down the hallway. That's someone else's fucking problem. That's not caring for every life. That's caring for your own fucking image. And that's what our politicians do. That's what Cuomo does, and that's what de Blasio does. They care about their image. They care about being liked. They want to be able to say that they're on the right side of history, and they want to be able to pretend that these are easy choices to make. And the way that they pretend that these are easy choices to make is they pretend that it is a univariate problem, not a multivariate problem. Multivariate problems are difficult. They're complex. So what we do is we put our blinders on and we look the other way. And the way our politicians look the other way is they make these rules, and then they force people from the community that work in that community and live in that community to be the people who enforce these rules. And the restaurants are going to do what anybody who wants to survive does. Try a little bit more, little more, little more, little more, little more. My cat, Mr. Clinton, he's a lovely kitty, but if I have a bag of food behind me, even if I already fucking fed him, he's going to move towards it, move towards it, and move towards it, and move towards it. And then I'll put a claw in, 2 claws in. Then I'll put 3 claws in to the point where I can hear that the bag is scrunching. And he'll look like, Am I going to turn around? And if I don't turn around, I'll keep doing it until he breaks the fucking bag. He has done this with my cabinets. We have childproof locks on my cabinets because he knows how to open them. He can open the door to my closet. He will continue to do this just so that he can get a little bit of extra food, even after he's already been fed. And that's my Clinton. Restaurants are going to do the same thing. That's not science. That is the basic instinct for basic survival instinct there. And that is what they are doing with the inspectors. And then the inspector has to ask himself, do I want to be the person responsible for my neighbor going bankrupt, for my neighbor not being able to afford to fix his heater so that his kids freeze to death in that apartment because I shut down the way that he makes money? When I am unfit, unwilling, and even if many people are willing, sometimes, frankly, unable to provide for them, what am I going to do? You know, because again, they're not actually able to do anything. And again, it's not the state governments, it's the federal government that has the power to print money and then kick the can down the road so that we're mildly better off now in exchange for being 10 times worse off in the future. States can't do that. Federal governments can fuck us later in exchange for making us feel better now. State governments can't even offer that. So there's nothing they can do. There's nothing they can do. They could choose one type of misery or another type of misery. And that's what we have here. And this is why it absolutely drives me out of my mind when people will say, you know, you just don't care about saving lives. You clearly don't care about saving lives. You don't like saving lives. I mean, if you look at how strict Florida's lockdown has been, and you look at how strict New York's lockdown has been, then you just do a little bit of math. You look at the number of people that died in New York in relation to the total population of New York. Then you look at the number of people that died in Florida in relation to the number of people in Florida. Like, if we're judging how much people care by the actual results, Cuomo is seemingly the least caring politician, not the mostly caring politician. But I'm not going to judge people on face value. I'm going to judge it based on results. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I think people on Team Red and Team Blue have both become ideologically possessed beyond belief, and I usually can't stand to have a conversation with someone who identifies as a team member, usually for more than 7 minutes before my head explodes. But this is not even like a red or a blue issue. This is just politics. People care about pandering to their base. They care about seeming like they are on the right side of history as per their voter base. In New York, this would be the right side of history. So what they do is they create these orders that, A, if you follow them, you're more screwed than if you don't follow them. B, provide no incentive structure whatsoever for a moral, ethical person that cares about their own survival to follow them. And C, make sure that you're not the one enforcing it. Make sure it's really, really, really low-level people that have to enforce this crap. And the low-level people don't want to enforce this crap. If low-level people in the system, the ones that were actually supposed to be enforcing this, thought that this was something just, they'd be enforcing it. The reason they're not is because they don't think it's just. And again, in New York City, you can convince these people to enforce having a business like mine, get a fine of up to $1,000 because we don't have our business license number on either the receipt or a business card. A few months after we open, I'm working 15 to 16 hours a day. Our business is 4.5 to 5 stars. We have no complaints from anybody. So instead of walking in and saying, listen, we just added this to the rule book. I know you have a business to run. You have all this rent to pay. You probably don't have the time to read through the whole book. Here's what I need you to do. Can you just do me a favor? Okay, just edit the HTML in your receipt software. Just add this number to the top and we're all good. So you have a license number there. Oh, okay. Oh, cool. You printed? Oh, great. Thank you so much, man. Instead of doing that, they just give you a fine of $250 to $1,000 because that's how New York City does. The people that are responsible for doing that kind of petty garbage bullshit enforcement for the city that causes most business owners to think New York is a cesspool, even they are going and saying, you know what? I'm not doing this. No, because okay, I'm putting a hardship on that business. Maybe they would have given someone a bonus. Maybe they would have paid their rent on time. But that's got to go to New York City because the fucking number that's on your wall and your website was not on the... They're not willing to enforce this. And there's a reason they're not willing to enforce this. Because there's no carrot to go with the stick. Every rule has usually got a carrot to go with the stick. Here you have a stick and a bigger stick. When you have a rule like this, you can't necessarily enforce it as well when there's no carrot. You're not going to feel as justified in enforcing with no carrot. I have several rules at the store. One of them was recently broken. It's a rule that I thought was fairly implied. And the reason that I feel justified in becoming as aggravated and angry at the person who broke the rule as I did is because that person who broke this particular rule, which is seemingly obvious rule at any business, there was a carrot there. So instead of breaking the rule, they could have come to me, they could have explained how a situation was, and they could have actually probably gotten a better result for themselves had they simply not broken the rule than if they did. Now, again, even if I was not able to help them at all with their problem, there's still no justification for breaking the rule. But the reason that I feel okay in having that rule there in place is because I know that they would have been better off had they not broken the rule. I have a carrot there. I will help you out. You will not, you will not be worse off as a result of following the rule than as if you didn't follow the rule. But when you have a system in place where good, hard-working, normal people are going to be considerably worse off with no solution as a result of following a rule than not following a rule, what follows is not science. What follows is politics, survival instincts, and fuckery. I live in New York. I believe in science, and I can very clearly say, confidently, that what you see in these videos when I pass these bubbles that nobody has cleaned, and I love how people always say, what if they're cleaning the bubbles in between? Have you ever seen the pays of a New York City restaurant? They don't even clean the buildings in New York City in between tenants, and you think they're cleaning the fucking bubbles in between? Oh my God. Anyway, when you see these bubbles and you see this outdoor dining, that's not science. That's purely politics. Science is something that is good. Science has allowed our society to move forward. Science should be trusted. Science is a good thing. Don't discredit science. Don't say science is bad because you see this shit. Because this is not science. Nothing about this is science. These are virtue-signaling politicians that are forcing low-level city workers into a shit position where they have to choose between following orders or fucking over their neighbors and their fellow citizens. And they are deciding, you know what? I'm going to look the other way because I don't want to be in that situation, because I don't want to fuck people and screw them over for not following a rule when I have no solution for how they're going to live their lives, pay their rent, pay for their heat, pay for their food when there's no way for, no, I'm not doing it. I resign. I'm not doing it. That's what you see. It's not science. It's simple. It's politics. So just think about that. That's all I got to say. I'm not saying that you shouldn't think New York is ridiculous. Many things about New York are. I'm not saying that you shouldn't criticize New York for Cuomo getting a fucking Emmy and selling a fucking picture of how fucking amazing he was at dealing with COVID when we have more COVID deaths per person than fucking Florida that had virtually no lockdowns, at least in contrast to New York's. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm asking, which I think is a reasonable ask, don't associate what's going on here with science. Science is a good thing. Science will get us through this. Science will make things better. Science is going to be how we find a cure to this shit. Science is going to be how we prevent this shit from happening in the future. Science is not what we have going on right here. So that's about it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye now.